So I'll be talking about Luke 13:6-9, the parable of the fig tree. So this text is supposed to be about fruitfulness, abundance in our life, in our communities. It's supposed to be about nurturing ourselves and our communities so they bear fruit. However, the more I dug into this passage, the more the word second chances kept on coming to my mind. Our farmer wants to cut down the fig tree and dispose of it, but the gardener intervenes, nurtures the tree, and it blooms again. What if this passage was talking about our relationship with God and with each other? How often have we tried to cut God out of our lives when things don't go the way we want them to go? How often have we been hesitant to forgive someone who has hurt us? And how often have we defriended someone on social media because they did not say something we liked or did something we liked? Now, before I get started, I'm not suggesting for 1 second if someone's toxic or abusive, you should try to repair that relationship with them. I just want to be clear on that. I'm talking about pettiness. The pettiness we cannot put aside. The difference of opinion we just cannot overlook. But what if, instead of cutting these people out of our lives, we nurtured them, we forgave them? The Bible is littered with stories of second chances. The story that comes to mind when I was writing this was the story of Jonah the whale. God wanted to destroy Nineveh because they were corrupt, and God chose Jonah to go to the city of Nineveh to prophesy. And Jonah refuses, and he runs away. And he gets swallowed by the whale, he gets spit out and given a second chance. Then he goes to Nineveh, prophesies to inhabitants, and they begin to change. So God gives the city of Nineveh a second chance. He decides not to destroy it. Then there's the story of Rahab, of David and Moses and Zacchaeus, and even the thief on the cross. Over and over again, God extends God's grace and gives people second chances. Yet we are so often quick to want to just chop that tree down. Now, since I've been at Parkdale, I've heard about the flaws of Parkdale. Yes, not everything is perfect here. And I've heard stories about hurting each other. And I realize people have left because of this hurt. And yet others remain here still, but they're hesitant to plunge themselves back in fully, and they sit on the edge of the pool just dipping their toe in. And do I blame them? Not really. It is hard to give someone a second chance. It's hard to forgive, especially when someone is hurt at church. This is supposed to be a place, a sanctuary. This is not supposed to be a place of hurt, so that hurt doubles down. It hurts more. And we do not get to choose who graces the doors of Parkdale. We do not get to choose who God sends to this door. And therefore, our church is made up. This family is made up of a bunch of people who come from different corners of society. We have been raised by different parents. We have different opinions, different values. different ways of interacting with each other. So we really should not be shocked that we don't always get along, we don't always agree. It should not be a shock that as perfectly imperfect humans, we cannot always tolerate each other and we don't always agree. God also does not always like what we do. God does not like our opinions, our choices. Yet the God of post-Easter does not want to cut us down or cut us out or punish us. And God sent the gardener to nourish us, to love us, to give us a second chance, a third and fourth and fifth chance, endless chances. So why is it so hard in the community of faith, a place where we're supposed to be looking after each other, caring for each other, nurturing each other? Why is it so easy for us to judge? So easy to be intolerant? So easy to be impatient with each other? I am so tired of saying it's because we're human. This excuse is no longer valid. Our humanity does not excuse our bad behavior. It does not excuse our quick tongues. It does not excuse our lack of grace. Our pride, our selfishness, our stubbornness is what gets in our way of relationships. So when I was a youth minister a very long time ago, I was at a youth event and I was having issues with one of my young youth, and she was running around with the wrong crowd at school and pushing every boundary. That particular evening, she decided to hang out with another troubled teen, and I found them hiding in a closet downstairs at the church, and I brought them back to the group. However, before returning to the group, I pulled her aside and I gave her a warning that this other kid she was hanging out with probably wasn't the best choice. I could have stopped here, but I guess I felt that peer pressure might have been the best way to go. So I said the other youth leaders had expressed the same concern as me. But this was a lie. I hadn't talked to the other youth leaders, and they had no idea that they were even hanging out together. But this teen was angry at me. She was angry for suggesting that this teen was not a good influence on her. And she ran to the other youth leaders and she said, Kim said, I shouldn't be hanging out with this teen because he's a bad influence on me. Did you say that? And of course, they didn't have a clue what I was talking about. And they said, no, we didn't say that. That evening, the youth got home and things escalated. The mom got involved, and I received a phone call a week later from the regional youth rep asking me what happened. Well, by this time, I was angry. I was feeling unsupported. I did not want this teenage girl to be causing all these issues. I felt self-righteous. I felt what I did was right, even though I lied. And so instead of confessing, I simply said the youth was being dramatic and making a big deal of nothing. There was no way on earth I was going to be seen as wrong. And over the next few weeks, things got worse. I was pitted against one of my youth. he said, she said kind of story. And that youth was beyond furious at me that I had lied to her. And my pride swelled. My stubbornness dug in deeper. And the need to be right overshadowed all the truth. And I don't know what happened besides maybe I read something about Lent. Lent happened. And I stopped. And I took a step back. And I realized this could all go away if I gave up my incessant need to be seen as perfect, my incessant need to be right. And God at that moment changed my heart. And I humbled myself. I sat down and I wrote a huge email and I told the truth. I asked for forgiveness. I confessed that I let my ego get in my way. And as I pushed send on that email, I felt a huge sense of relief. I decided right then and there that I was going to give up my need to be right for Lent. I decided that I would practice being humble for Lent. Yes, I could have continued to be selfish, stubborn, and egotistic. I could have just cut that youth out of my life because I'm sure she had no desire on earth to come back to youth group. But instead, I decided that I was going to be the gardener and forgive and nourish and replenish. Was this easy? No. It was not easy at all. It was not easy to humble myself. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. But I try to be humble. I really try. And all I'm asking you is to try. In order to move forward, in order for us to build connections, to build a stronger community, to rebuild, we have to let go of our pride and our ego and our selfishness. We have to be humble with each other. We need to start to forgive past actions, forget our differences of opinions, and start nourishing each other with love and kindness. And this is exactly what Lent is for. It's a time to forgive, reconcile, replenish. Lent is all about our love for God and our willingness to surrender our ego, our selfishness, and our stubbornness. We cannot separate the love we have for God from our fellow people. They're connected, they're internally connected. And we cannot ask God to extend endless grace to us and not extend it to humanity. We're all better than that. We're not a part of the secular world that subscribes to self-love and self-happiness and individualism and individual spirituality. This is not what we're called to be. We are called to love one another, to worship one God together. We are called to nourish a community of faith and the wider world. From Luke 13:6-9 from the Message Bible, he told them a story. A man had an apple tree planted in his front yard. He came to expect to find apples, but there wasn't any. He said to his gardener, "What's going on here? For 3 years now, I've come to this tree expecting apples, and not one apple have I found. Chop it down. Why waste good ground with it any longer?" And the gardener said, "Let's give it another year." Let's dig around it and fertilize it. And maybe it'll produce next year. If it doesn't, then we'll chop it down. Notice, though, that there's no neat ending to the story. We don't know what happens. Does it bear fruit next year? Does it survive? Or is it chopped down to make room for something else? Would any of those outcomes be okay for the gardener? We have to write our own ending to this story and our story at Parkdale. And Lent is a time to do this. It's a time to start making an effort, even in a small way. Because we are the fig tree, but we're also the gardener. And maybe sometimes we're the impatient landowner. Either way, there's a place in the story for us. We've all been given a second chance. So please, as you go out into the world, extend that grace to others. Amen. Please join me in singing Rain Down, Rain Down. You may rise as you're.
So this is a newer thing, and what I hope that it's very easy to pick up. And we're going to see